Hey guys, Dr. Michael Young here again for another one of our exciting videos. This week's module, we're jumping into chapter 6, and the topic is entrepreneurship. It's a French word made popular by an economist from Austria named Joseph Schumpeter that you probably will hear more about sometime later on in your studies, and how to start a small business. In our last couple of informal discussions, ungraded discussions, you guys have brought up the fact, some of you, in fact quite a few of you, I was quite surprised to learn that several of you hope to become small business people and entrepreneurs. So hopefully this will be of some use to you. We're just going to talk about some of the more interesting aspects of it, what makes for success. And then we're also going to cover another article. It's called The Ugly Truth About Entrepreneurship, because I want to give you a realistic proposal here. For those of us that are from business families, you know that being from a business family is not all rainbows and lollipops. There's also a very rough, jagged, stressful side to being an entrepreneur, and so we're going to try to talk about that as well. So anyway, sit back and enjoy, and let's get this puppy started. Entrepreneurs are kind of heroes in U.S. society. A lot of the people that we consider to be entrepreneurs, even as of late, these are some classic ones. Jeff Bezos is a more recent one. Of course, we all know Jeff Bezos, who's famous for giving up his job and starting the first real internet company in which he decided to start selling books. That bookstore has now morphed into Amazon.com, which you can buy anything from Amazon.com. But we also have the story of movies have been made about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak starting an Apple computer out of their garage. And, there are just lots of examples now of these entrepreneurs that have sort of been blown up bigger than life. Elon Musk, right? I mean, there's no shortage of examples of people that we can think of. But for all of those people, and again, I don't want to be a negative Nelly here, but for all of those people that have been successful and have become achieved hero status, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that have fallen by the wayside who have tried to do it and have not been successful. So let's keep that in mind as we're moving forward. Quite interestingly, many of you want to become an entrepreneur right away. Probably not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea to start something like that when you are young. And let's face it, there's a very good chance you will fail. But if you do fail, you can start again. If you start when you're young, you have a chance to regroup, and you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep on moving. But here are 5 reasons to start your business right away. You have potential for long-term results. Often, typical, traditional university students don't have mortgage or kids to take care of. I know some of you guys do from our introductions. But for those of us that don't, that's something else that we don't have to worry about. Oftentimes you haven't become accustomed to making a large paycheck, so it doesn't cause a hardship when you have to cut back. There's no disruption to your career path because it hasn't started yet. You're more adaptable and have a higher risk tolerance at a younger age. This is what studies show. Glamorous aspects of becoming an entrepreneur and why people want to do it. Opportunity, profit, independence, the challenge. In the last 2 universities that I've worked out, entrepreneurship was a big component of the education. And we had entrepreneurship as courses, we had entrepreneurship as majors even at Hong Kong Baptist University. And I've worked with a lot of these entrepreneurs or these fledgling or wannabe entrepreneurs, and it's exciting. There's a draw. There's definitely an attractive component to becoming an entrepreneur. To be an entrepreneur, it takes a certain type of character, a certain type of personality. You need to be a self-starter, self-directed. You need to be able to resilient. They say self-nurturing. I think you need to be able to bounce back and take rejection. action-oriented. You have to have lots of energy, and you have to be able to tolerate uncertainty. There's a much less structure in being an entrepreneur. You have to create your own time management, your own routines, and so you have to be tolerant of uncertainty. It's not like going to work or doing a certain task or being told what to do every day. Oftentimes, when people start businesses, they choose a team. Remember last time we talked about partnerships. Teams, entrepreneurial teams, you get a group of people with different strengths, different weaknesses. They can complement each other, and they can combine those skills so that they work better together than they would separately. When I was at Appalachian State University, there was an MBA student from China who developed a new product. It was an app called Palapod that was designed just to get people together that had common interests so that they could form entrepreneurial teams. Turned out to be pretty successful. She actually ended up moving to New York and went forward with that product. Here's a new word that you may not have heard of: entrepreneur. Entrepreneur, definition of that is creative people who work as entrepreneurs, or at least they have an entrepreneurial mindset within larger organizations or corporations. The intrapreneurs use existing resources in new and exciting ways to develop new products or new processes that didn't exist before. Examples include 3M, Post-it notes, Apple's Mac computer, and Sony's PlayStations. These were all begun by people inside the company that just decided to take things in a whole new direction. One company that is quite famous for being very innovative and entrepreneurial, even though it's a large company, is the company 3M, which you've probably heard of. They make Post-it notes, they make Scotch tape, they make a lot of sandpaper, they make adhesive products, really. Adhesives, materials is their main product. You may not know this, but the 3 M's, the MMM from 3M stands for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. They started off as a mining company up in Minnesota, and when they were doing their mining, they realized that they needed a lot of sandpaper. They couldn't get any good sandpaper, so they started making their own sandpaper, and as they started to make this sandpaper, they were doing such a great job of it that some other people began buying the sandpaper, and pretty soon they realized, hey, we can make more money making sandpaper than we can in mining, and so they switched their position to become really a sandpaper company. And they're still famous for the sandpaper today, but they've since they've branched out into lots of other products, especially that have to do with adhesives. In fact, I once heard that they hope that half of their revenue will come from products that don't exist in 5 years. They're always hoping to have new products being developed, and so they have this entrepreneurial spirit in which they encourage people to be innovative within the organization. As Chrissy talked about in our last discussion, during the pandemic, a lot of people began home-based businesses. When they lost their jobs or they were forced to stay at home, they began doing some other stuff. And these are sometimes referred to as micropreneurs. You got the definition here. That's an entrepreneur willing to accept the risk of starting and managing a business that remains small, lets them do the work that they want to do, and offers them a balanced lifestyle. And we still have a lot of these around today, and there are reasons for that. For example, music teachers. You could think of a music teacher as being a micropreneur. Because they have to teach typically 1 or 2 people at a time, and since their time is limited, this means that they have to be in a small scale business. But I guess maybe it's kind of a life choice, and so they decided that they'd rather do this than work for a big corporation. And reasons for the growth of these businesses is, as who was it? I believe it was one of our discussants in the last discussion mentioned the fact that many people are doing stuff at home. We know that much of our life is moving online. We're all stuck to our phone every day. And so this new computer technology has leveled the playing field. It's made it able for small people, small 1 or 2 person operations to challenge big corporations. And social attitudes have changed. And there's just lots of factors that have led to a growth in these home-based micropreneur and entrepreneur businesses. Something that's sprung up recently to help small businesses get started are business incubators. We know what an incubator is. It allows us to speed up and hatch an egg faster than it normally would. Well, these business incubators do the same thing for businesses. In one of my jobs, before I returned to the United States, I was working at Hong Kong Baptist University. We were starting a new entrepreneurship major. And as part of our plan, we went around and visited a lot of these incubators, and so I got to see how they operate. And they just have workspace, they have resources. They would have a pitch night when once or twice a week they would just allow people to get up and they would invite venture capitalists, and they would all come in and give their business idea. And this would, if a venture capitalist was there that liked it, they could actually invest in the idea. In fact, we have 20 such business incubators all across West Virginia. So if you are thinking about going into a business, you might want to consider checking out a local incubator. If you want to start a business, the first place to start is to make a business plan. And there are loads of templates out there on the internet for free, or you can get some more expensive ones, or you could hire someone to help you with it. But this is, as it says here, a detailed written statement that describes the nature of the business, target market, the advantages the businesses will have in relation to competition, and the resources and qualifications of the owners. This is a good thing for raising money. In fact, it's mandatory for talking with bankers or investors, and it forces the people that are thinking about starting the business to really think about what it is they want to do. Typical business plan would have several parts. Here's a common outline that might use. You would have a cover letter in which, depending on who you're sending this to, this would introduce your business plan to them. Executive summary. This is a 1 or 2 page written summary of exactly what it is your business is planning to do without getting into all the nitty-gritty detail. I mean, a good business plan, if it has a lot of detail, could consist of 100 or more pages. It's not uncommon. Then you would have the company background. This would talk about where you're coming from, which would include the management team, the financial plan, where you plan to get money, maybe your business plan, how you would plan to make a profit, the capital that you would require, a marketing plan, a location analysis, if it's a manufacturing product, a manufacturing plan, and then an appendix. So it's not something to be taken lightly. If you would like more resources, including in these slides, which are posted on my online, you'll see some links here to Small Business Investment Company's Office of Innovation and Entrepreneurship, SCORE, Kaufman Entrepreneurs. These are all sites that have resources that would help you to get your business started. Finally, within that, there's a little questionnaire that will help you determine whether you would like to be an entrepreneur or not. So you think you're ready to work from home? So here is a set of questions you can answer either yes or no to see if you've got what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Now, one more thing I would like to do, other than go over those slides, is I told you I wanted to give you a balanced view of entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship, I know from my discussions with students that not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, and that's understandable because being an entrepreneur can be hard work. So if you go to our course page, on my online page, you should see something like this. If you go down here to this section, what we're doing now, Module 5, Chapter 6, Did You Ever Dream of Starting Your Own Business? There's a link down here. This is the PowerPoint files that I just now went over. Our discussion is going to be, would you like to be an entrepreneur? Why or why not? But there's another link here to an article that I found very interesting. It's called The Ugly Truths About Entrepreneurship. And I can tell you this, whenever we started our entrepreneurship concentration at a university I worked at before, we had a discussion, should we try to convince people or students to be an entrepreneur? And we had mixed feelings about that because I think that a lot of times students have an overly glamorous idea of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, and there's really an ugly side to it. And although it might be worthwhile for you to start when you're very, very young, many people, successful entrepreneurs, don't get started until they're older when they have more experience. So let's click on this link and see what they have to say about that. If you click on that, it takes us into an article, an online article, 19 Ugly Truths About Entrepreneurship That Everyone Should Know Before They Start a Business. This is Inc. Magazine. This is a classic article, all right? And number one, it's going to be harder than you think. It's going to be harder on relationships than you'll ever anticipate. Because whenever you become an entrepreneur, the other people in your life are also going to be along for the ride. Whether that's your significant other, your parents, your children, it's going to be hard on your relationships. It costs double and takes twice as long. We tend to be overly optimistic about how things work out, and so just plan on it being much, much harder than what you had anticipated. It's stressful with decreased sleep. I have friends that are entrepreneurs and they're constantly complaining about how they have difficulty sleeping. You don't have a lot of free time to just hang out. You always take your work home with you. It's going to be very hard for you to have work-life balance, at least in the beginning. As you get more established, you can hire more people, you can step back more from it if you begin that successful. But at least in the beginning, work-life balance is impossible. You'll constantly feel uncertain as to whether it's working or not. There are no certainties. You just wonder whether this is going to work or not. You'll always be worried that someone else is coming up with something better. You have to worry about the competition. Both the successes and failure greatly impact different relationships you have with people. If you're successful, this is going to be reflected in your relationships. If you fail, this is also going to be reflected in your relationships. The buck stops here. Every responsibility falls back to you. You can't blame it on someone else. If you are the entrepreneur, if you're the founder, then it all comes back to you. Yeah, there's always something to do, which leads to feelings of inadequacy. You'll always feel like there's something that you should be doing, or you should have done. And so this might cause you to, have feelings of inadequacy. There's no guarantee. Regardless of how you feel that day, you have to show up to put food on the table for yourself and your employees. You've got other people, which jumps down to this one. I'm going to get these out of order. Other people's livelihoods are dependent on you. I've had my friends say that, they feel responsible if the business is not doing well because that means their employees may lose their job. If you're losing money, if you've taken on debt, this is going to cause knots in your stomach. I remember when I was growing up in a business family, my father was under constant stress trying to make his payments, and there were a lot of times that he was afraid that he wasn't going to be able to do it, and I could see the stress taking a toll on him and his health. You have to sometimes know when to say, okay, we didn't make it. We have to pivot. We have to drop back and punt. We have to try something else. And that's often hard. No one will appreciate how much you do, and you really can't expect them to. No one is going to understand exactly how hard it is except for you. And you just have to be okay with that. You'll probably try to work too hard. We know that a lot of people that start their own businesses get burned out. They're trying to work too hard. There's a famous saying that working harder than everybody else is not a strategy. This is one of my favorite business strategists by the name of Michael Porter. Working harder than everybody else is not a strategy. You can't work harder than everybody else unless you have superhuman abilities, which you don't, because none of us have superhuman abilities. We're all humans. And so, you just got to, realize that it is a marathon and not a sprint. You will have to learn to judge success over the course of a quarter or year, not a day or week. In other words, there are going to be setbacks. You just have to take those setbacks with a grain of salt and keep on going and look at the big picture. Finally, there's nobody else to blame. If it's a failure, it can be devastating, to your ego, and you have no one else to blame. Luckily, in our society, compared to other societies, failure is often tolerated. In fact, it's often expected. I've heard that some business people like to hire people that have failed at least once because they know that they're really willing to take the big chances. All right, so we are going to stop here. I hope that was useful. This week we're going to be discussing would you like to be an entrepreneur? And don't forget, you've got that Shark Tank assignment coming up soon. We'll be talking more about that later. So in the meantime, hope this was useful, and have a great week.